Well, hello and welcome to Passion. I'm your host, Britt Ivy, and today we have with us musical guests, Gayle Wilson and her husband, George Rubaloff. Welcome, you two.
Thanks, Britt. It's great to be here. I haven't been on the show in a long time. It's good to see you.
Well,
Thank you, Britt. Thanks for having us, too.
Yeah.
Appreciate it very much.
my pleasure. I'm very excited for this little talk show here so we can just kick back and visit about what you've been doing. Gayle, you've been around, both of you have been around for decades in the Valley, so we're here to talk about your passion for music. And maybe at some point in the show, I might slip in a little bit of the passion you have for each other. I kind of have the inside scoop on how you met and your love story. But let's start out by talking a little bit about what you're currently doing at Camelot Theater. I know you had a year off or so. Why don't you share with the audience where you've been?
Sure.
We're so
Well,
used to
I've
seeing
been-
you everywhere, from Channel 10 news anchor woman years ago to,
Channel
TV
5,
person.
Britt.
Channel 5,
Right.
whoops,
Well,
whoops.
You were at 10, I was at 5.
Okay, anyway.
But yeah, I had back surgery, actually. I had 2 back surgeries, and they really took it out of me for about a year. It was a long recovery, but I'm back now and feel really good, and I'm rehearsing right now on a spotlight for Camelot Theater.
Congratulations.
And it's a Carole King spotlight, and I think it's the 11th show that I've done there for spotlights. So I've covered a lot of ground. Rosemary Clooney and the Andrews sisters, and Patti Page, Doris Day, Karen Carpenter.
I saw Karen Carpenter.
Dusty Petula, Dusty Springfield and Petula Clark, and big girl singers of the big band era, and
saw
then
that.
Blue Divas. Did you see Blue Divas?
No, I
did that
didn't.
with Jade Watt. Oh, that was
Oh,
fun.
Jade's
that was
fantastic.
That was blues from the 20s and 30s. Ma Rainey, Bessie Smith.
Oh, I missed that one.
was
I bet
really
that
good.
was great.
So this is Carole King. So it's really fun. She was very important in my
Youth.
yes, my musical development as well.
Amazing. Well, she's won a lot of Grammys.
Yeah, a lot of Grammys.
As George reminded me, the Gershwin Award.
She won the Gershwin Award. Yeah.
Popular song.
Amazing.
Yeah.
How does it feel to play someone so famous? I guess you've done it 11 times.
Yeah,
but
they're all famous.
A lot of times they aren't with us,
Right.
but she
Yeah.
is.
She's not touring anymore, but she's still very active in all the things. So, yeah, so that's what I'm working on, as well as, George and I play music together. And so we're always working on our upcoming gigs, and I've been learning a new style of music for the last several years, and George introduced me to that. It's Gypsy Jazz.
Yes. Well, I'm excited to.
Yeah.
So I've been playing that.
I have to say, it's really nice to be married to and have a best friend that has a work ethic like she does, because I get to watch this in action.
She's amazing.
She is.
Do not miss an appointment. Do not miss a rehearsal. If you're not 10 minutes early, you're late. That's what she says to me. She trained me on being on time. If you're not 10 minutes early, Britt, you are late.
You're late.
I'm like, okay.
But her work ethic, when she digs into a project, is pretty amazing.
She's
I mean, we all have that. There's something about work that is. It's a joy. It's a joyful thing when we're doing it, and we're doing it well. But to watch her work is.
And he has a stronger work ethic than me, believe me. He does. So for him to say, it's not like he's laying around on the
Right.
couch going, wow, I could watch you work all day.
Yes, I
You know,
understand
he's
your
tremendous.
recent love of photography, that you spend about 20 out of 24 hours a day working on that. So we'll get to that at the later part
Okay.
in the show. But so you're both a little mutual admiration society. That sounds like a marriage in heaven to me. That sounds just, I mean, how amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with the audience. You're very inspiring that way.
Yeah, thanks for recognizing that too.
Absolutely. I'm actually looking forward to talking about that. So
Okay, well, let's talk about it.
okay, let's just go for it then.
We don't have to warm up to that,
Right,
Britt.
right. Well, I happen to know, I was actually pretty involved in your life at the time you met George, and happened to know that you met at a photo op for jazz musicians.
Oh, yes,
And you both had lived within blocks of each other for decades.
and we did.
And didn't know each other. You both were famous in your own right in the Valley as performers and didn't know each other, and you showed up at this photo op. Why don't, instead of me sitting here and talking about it for 10 minutes, which I could, why don't you tell me a little bit? 'Cause
You have a pretty good handle on
Gone
it.
with the Wind, it was Attraction right at the beginning. And,
But there's a very important element to that story that I do want to talk about.
Oh,
and,
a couple
Well,
elements.
one of them is, how we met, it was a photo shoot, can't talk today,
It's okay.
at Pascal Winery
Right.
in Talent. And
yes, you were going to bring
It
the
was-
photo. Did anyone bring the photo? I remember.
oh, was I going to bring
Yeah,
the
and
photo?
you were,
Oh, I
you were like,
forgot.
Britt, there's the guy.
Oh,
Yes,
did I
you
point him out to
pointed
you?
him out to
Okay.
me.
Well, we were part of a group over a 5-year period. There was a jazz appreciation club, very informal, that met at Pascal Winery once a month. And they would have local jazz musicians come and, give a concert on their specialty, and then talk about the music and the composers and that sort of thing, which is my very favorite kind of concert to do. So I had worked at Pascal Winery with Dal Carver and Jeff Adicott, my jazz trio guys. And George had been there with his group, Back Porch Swing, at one point over this 5-year period. So the woman who organized that, Jana Colesbun, wanted to have a big photo at Pascal Winery to commemorate 5 years of this jazz club. And anybody who had played there under that umbrella was invited. So there were about 55, I think, of us.
It was a long line of
50,
people.
It was a bunch of
55, maybe
people,
even
and we
60,
all
yeah.
went there, and that's where we met. So I had never heard Back Porch Swing play, although I knew they played Gypsy Jazz, and I really liked that kind of music. So I was standing there, and George came up to me, and what did you say?
Oh, that's good. Then I get the interlude in this story. Well,
That's the way it always
this
is.
is
So I
this
changed
is the
for
way
now.
we've told this story before, and so I need to preface it with saying that, of course, I knew who she was. Did I ever formally meet her? No, I didn't, because I watched all of her hairdo changes. She did commercials for 23 years.
Right.
Car commercials. In fact, a lot of people think she owned the car company.
Yeah, wouldn't that have been nice?
And so I watched her hairstyles change, watched her on a lot of things she did on the air. But we'd never actually formally met, shook hands. And so she was walking across the room because we were waiting to do this shoot. And
It was outside, wasn't it?
It
well, it was outside, but we were
the shoot.
inside
We were
socializing.
waiting inside. Everybody was drinking wine
Okay.
and waiting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she walked by, and she was only a few feet away, and I just extended a greeting to her. And so we formally met. And what did you say you said something about my band.
Well, he introduced himself, and he said, "Hi, George Rubaloff, Back Porch Swing," and I looked at him and went, "Oh, I love that band," and he looked at me, and I know he was thinking, "I've never seen her on a gig that I've been at. Where's she heard my band?" And as soon as I said that, I thought, that's the first lie. No, no, I can't do that. And what I really meant to say was, I love the music that your band plays, but that's not how it came out. And he looked at me, and I thought, okay. So I tried to recover and save it as best I could.
I'll just put a quick wrap on my story, and that is that, I've told this story because it's exactly the way I was feeling. And when we met and we were exchanging
Pleasantries.
Pleasantries
right.
was the word that came to mind
Yeah, that's
here,
right.
too.
I was trying to search for that.
We'll
but
finish. You two women here.
Yeah,
we'll
we'll-
finish
Thank
the
you,
sentence
thank you.
for you.
My wife is my editor, too. I just wanted you to know. It was one of those things where when you're meeting somebody and then all of a sudden everything in the room just goes black and white or goes kind of quiet.
Did you faint?
Well, no, I didn't. But what was happening was, it was the only thing that was happening in that room was meeting her. Everything else was
Like
just
in the
blocked
movies.
out. So there was I don't know if it was Gone with a Wind, but it was kind of felt like that.
So we did have an immediate, you know, I remember thinking, well, he was really nice. We didn't really actually go out for coffee for several weeks, but after that we did, and we maintained a friendship for about 3 months before becoming romantically involved, which I think is really important.
Yeah.
Key.
Key.
It's key in a relationship, you know, and I've had, you know, numerous false starts in my life. Everybody knows that. And
Well, they
so
do now.
Well, they do now. Well, it was important for me to just take some time and get to know who is this person. You know, can he maintain his appearance of genuine article for several months? You know, because most people, guys, women too, they can do it for a month or so, but then the real person starts to relax and come out. So my advice is on relationships: get to know the person first.
Dr. Gayle.
That's
you
right.
heard it here first.
You heard it here first, and then, if you want to proceed, then take it a step further and, you know, make some commitments and that kind of thing. But get to know the person. Wow.
Well,
anyway,
that's very wise.
I got to know him, and I
We had to
really.
work our way around the bases really slow.
Well, like the lasting effect here is tribute that works, obviously. And I actually remember the fact that there were some discussions that happened. And I think besides becoming a person's friend before introducing romance, as you mentioned, Gayle, the next component that made it so successful is the fact that you did discuss. Let's discuss money, for instance.
discuss
Let's have
finances.
a talk about a budget. You know, whereas most
right.
people you've known for 6 months and they're like, what? But most marriages that end, they say money problems have a huge part in the
really
ending
important.
of a marriage.
They do. I think
and I
a lot
remember
of times
that.
we want to deny that, but it's
Right.
true.
It's really
Money
true,
is
and that
important.
was important.
And how
So-
solid you must feel to be able to talk about those things. This is how this and this and this
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
how fantastic. And then other conversations that came out of that about how we're going to live and your lifestyle. I think, George, I had made a little mental note to ask you a little bit about that before we move on to Gypsy Jazz.
Okay.
And that had to do with your discussed lifestyle, kind of a vision map for success when you met
Oh,
Gayle.
yeah,
how you
that's-
approached that.
Well, that's good. Well, you know, what we knew we wanted to do is we knew we wanted to carry out the artistic things that we like to do. And music, playing music was, you know, really an important
Kind
and
of number
always,
one. It was number one.
It was number one.
Let's face it.
Gayle, don't beat around the bush, honey. It was number one.
And it was interesting because when we finally did go to coffee, we sat down, we had a great conversation. We were on the Calle and we were at, what was the name of that restaurant?
Oh, it was
Green-
Greenleaf at the time.
Greenleaf, and we were having iced tea, and it was like 3 o'clock, so we met at 3 o'clock. And we had
a
this
nice
great
safe time, don't you think?
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
And she was 5 minutes early, too. But she talked about video production, video work. I talked about photography. We both talked about music because
It's your passion.
we already knew. And so we talked about these 4 passions of ours. And it's still like that today. And I think there isn't a day that goes by that I don't stop and think, I feel really fortunate. I feel really fortunate that, number one, that we met each other. I feel fortunate that we had these artistic things in common. And I feel fortunate that I had an opportunity to acquire these skills, playing music, you know, doing photography and that sort of thing. So I'm thankful every day that we have that.
That's beautiful.
I think it's really important to connect with someone that you have a lot in common with. You know, we have music and, you know, we both have our creative, you know, I was in video all my life, so I had that, and he's been, you know, was very much into photography when we met, and of course now he's taken it, you know, to the next level and beyond. But it's important, you know, we're on the same page politically, morally, our values are very similar. We're similar age. I think that's really nice myself. For some reason, I had always, you know, older men, but George and I are the same age, and we have the same cultural references. You
Right,
know,
right.
it's pretty great. Yeah, I should write a book on what you should.
You know,
look
this
for
is a
in that.
great idea.
Hey,
And
you know,
now we're going to have another show.
Yeah, okay. Just on men, right?
I wanted to interject something, and that is that, you know, she talked about that we're together on a lot of things. You know, we sometimes have slightly different ideas about maybe how to approach something. The one thing that another element of our lives that we're together on is the honey-do list. There's this honey-do list around the house.
We are?
Well, no. The content of the honey-do list we're together on, but it's when these things get done is where we differ sometimes.
Well, I always say, I say, well, no, we have this little standing running joke where he goes, honey, if it's on the list, it will get done. There's no need to nag me every 6 months.
What,
That's true.
yeah, isn't there a time limit to the list? Maybe each list should be 3
It
months.
should,
Oh,
yeah,
my
that's
goodness.
right. Well, there's always going to be carryover.
That honey-do list is so long, Britt. And it's
I've actually seen a room that you've remodeled. It's beautiful.
oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So let's go ahead and ask our director to go ahead and cut to Gayle's contact information, since we're going to segue now into the world's greatest romance, or from the world's greatest romance into your passion for music. And thank you
Right.
so much for sharing your passion for each other. It really does kind of ooze out of you, and I love being around you guys
Oh,
because you
thanks,
just
Britt.
bring light and joy to people that you're around.
Thanks,
and,
Britt.
yeah.
Very sweet of you to
Yeah.
say that.
I haven't cried for a couple shows now, so
Well,
see
you-
if I can hold it back here.
Yeah, you're doing good.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. So, and in just a moment, I would like to also show George's vintage jazz card. So whenever that's convenient in the control room there, if you could display that as we segue into Gypsy Jazz here. So this is George Rubaloff's vintage jazz contact information. As a musician and photographer, we'll show your contact information for photography at the end of the show.
Okay.
So at this time, I'm going to take a bit of a back seat to have you discuss Gypsy Jazz, which I just can't help myself. It sounds so fun to say 80 times in a row, Gypsy Jazz, Gypsy Jazz, Gypsy. But the guitar virtuoso that started Gypsy Jazz in the 20s, Django Reinhardt. I guess there's an amazing story there with a fire and a musician that had fingers, and I'll let you go ahead with that, George.
Yeah, I'll
We
talk
have-
a little bit about that. Well,
Yeah.
you know, Django Reinhardt, and by the way, that's spelled DJ, and a lot of people don't. It's not
A-N-G-O.
J or G, or it's D-J-A-N-G-O.
Yes, and we are going to
Django.
go to his first clip of Belleville Rendezvous. in
Actually,
a
that's
moment,
not
too.
his song,
Yeah.
but it's
Oh,
it's
he
a
didn't
song.
write it. But it's a gypsy jazz style.
It
he-
is a Gypsy Jazz.
Yeah, he wrote the other one that we have for you.
All right. We're definitely going to have a second show. They just told me there's 9 minutes left. Can you believe that?
I know, it
Wow,
goes so
it's gone
fast.
fast, yeah.
I know, it goes
All
so
right.
fast.
Well, you
Well,
promised.
well, then I'll summarize. Then Django Reinhardt was a bona fide gypsy from Europe, and he lived in the gypsy camps, and probably a standard lifestyle for the gypsy men were to learn from their uncles how to play an instrument. Could be a violin, could be a guitar, could be banjo.
Accordion.
Accordion, exactly, yeah. Accordions
Harmonica.
were really important in that kind of music. And so he was raised in that environment playing gypsy jazz. And this is we're talking about the little trailers that used to, or the wagons. You know, this goes way back to the 20s. And so he was married really young as a teenager, and one night, I think his wife, the wives in the gypsy camps were always the entrepreneurs, and they went out and sold things and did the things that they did. And she had these acrylic flowers that she used to sell. And one night in their wagon, those acrylic flowers caught fire.
Did they have acrylics in the 20s?
Well, that's
Wasn't it silk
That's-
or paper
you
or
know,
something?
Don't correct them in the middle
acrylic
of a
might
story
be,
now.
Oh,
might be
okay.
it might be
Whatever
a
they were,
modern thing, but somehow I read
they caught on
that
fire.
it was
Yeah, they caught
maybe
on
it was
fire.
cellulose or you know what.
Cellulose,
maybe it was
yeah,
cellulose,
that'll
yeah.
go up
Paper.
in flames.
But anyway, it caught
Anyway,
fire.
it
The
caught
whole
fire.
thing caught fire, and he was seriously injured in his leg and also in his hand. And so he was in the hospital for quite a while. They wanted to remove his leg, but his family said no. And somebody brought him, I think it was a guitar, while he was in the hospital. And you know, his fingers had been damaged so that what he ended up with was he had these two fingers. This one had just pretty much fused together, and he had kind of a little stub there. So, you know, he's done a lot with just two fingers.
Wow.
But anyway, he had this inkling to fuse American jazz and gypsy jazz, and that's what he did to create this music.
Amazing.
And so the long of the story is that he formed a band and became really popular. And the popularity that they had was in Europe was pretty much like a lot of these, like people looked at the Beatles as being really novel. Well, the Hot Club of France,
That
the
was the name of his
quintet,
band.
yeah, the band was amazingly popular.
They played in Paris tea rooms a lot, but they didn't drink tea in these tea rooms.
Right.
It was like,
All right.
you know.
So that music just
they
caught
had
hold, and it has a real infectious rhythm to it,
Wonderful.
and it's jazz, and it's very accessible for people, I think.
Awesome. Well, we probably just have time to play Bellevue Rendezvous.
Belleville Rendezvous. It's a clip of, it's very hot gypsy jazz style.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, that's probably what we have time for today, and the
Right.
next one we'll
Yeah.
share on the next show.
Will we hear this?
All right. Whenever you're ready, we will go to Belleville Rendezvous.
2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I won't finish life in Timbuktu. A cheek so tight, my lips are turning blue. I want to be wicked, utterly wicked, wicked like triplets from Belleville. Don't want to wind my days in Acapulco, stiff as a board dancing tango, tango. I'd love to be twisted, utterly twisted, twisted like a triplet from Belleville. Come on, girls, swinging Belleville Rendezvous, marathon dancing doop-de-doo, vaudou, can-can, valley taboo, a Belleville swinging rendezvous. Don't mind ending life in Kathmandu, singing with a sitar and a guru. I prefer to be, much prefer to be, swinging with the triplets from Belleville. Allez la fille, swinging Belleville Rendezvous, marathon dancing doop-de-doo, vaudou, can-can, valley taboo, Belleville swinging rendezvous. swinging Belleville rendezvous, marathon dancing doop-de-doo, Vaudoux, Can-Can, Valley Taboo, our Belleville swinging rendezvous, Belleville swinging rendezvous, Belleville swinging rendezvous, Belleville rendezvous.
Makes you want to sing.
Makes you want to dance.
Makes you want to definitely dance. That was great, Gayle.
Thank
That
you.
was great. I think I first heard you on the melodeon, one of those instruments that I was thinking was a harpsichord, but I don't know my instruments that well. I heard you on the melodeon at Standing Stone on the Patio one summer. You two were together. It must have been the
Oh, yeah. I do
when you had your
remember.
trio. It was lovely.
Well, that's a quartet on that recording. We have a guitarist and a bass player on that, in addition to George and I. But we play around town, a little bit around town. We play some wineries. We play at First Fridays at the hotel downtown, Ashland Springs Hotel, in the afternoon on a First Friday. And we play largely weddings and private fundraisers and private parties and that sort of thing. We don't really play around town too much, but I do play with my trio at the Wild Goose once every couple months.
Okay.
We just keep our chops up,
Wonderful.
you know? Yeah.
Well, I know that the annual chocolate festival, which of course I never can miss. Chocolate is essential to life.
Oh,
you're
and
playing
it's
this year.
food groups, yeah.
wonderful.
Yes.
The Ashland, the Oregon Chocolate Festival in Ashland is primo. It's
And
in
you're
March.
playing that in March, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's at the Ashland Springs Hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Each March
Fantastic.
is an annual thing, yeah.
Well, before we wrap up, let's ask our director to show the contact information of your photography business, George, because we'll have another show and we can talk about your passion for photography.
Very passionate.
There we are, George Rubaloff Photography, and your website's
Oh,
right
great.
there. And
That looks familiar.
I've seen some of your work. It's amazing.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's amazing.
Go to
Thank
his
you very much.
website. It's really loaded with wonderful.
Yeah.
It's art, really.
I like shooting
really
people. Yeah, people are interesting to me.
Could take that a different way, but
but we're not going
we're
to.
not going
No.
to. All right. Well, this has been a pleasure. Thank you guys so very
thank you,
much.
Britt.
I
Thanks
love
for
to
having
see
us.
your support of one another.
Thanks
It's
for
just
being-
beautiful, and thanks for your support of me as well.
Yeah.
over the
Absolutely.
years.
Thanks
And
for
the
being
show, you
interested.
know, you've been on this show for quite a while now, 8 years, I think. we
Something
said,
like
something like
that.
that.
Yeah.
So way to go. You're obviously passionate about that.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I have wonderful folks to talk to. I have great guests.
You're
Thank
a
you so much.
smooth interviewer.
All right, you guys. Well, I look forward to the next one.
Okay.
And
Thanks.
thank you so much for joining us today on Passion. I'm your host, Britt Ivy. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.